Hello, everyone. This is the Alexandria iBase.org program, and we're having a very interesting conversation today about the original founders of our organization. And I'd like to introduce, and I don't know if this would be left to right or right to left, but my name is Georgia Stathis. I'm the chairperson for the organization. And to my screen upper left is Enid Newberg, who was one of the original founders of our organization. To my upper right is Babs Kirby of the UK, who was very, very instrumental in helping us getting this thing going in the very beginning. To my lower left is Christine Skinner, also of the UK, and our secretary. And to the lower right is Ann Beebsdorf, one of our founders, who is our original librarian, cataloger, and this organization was started more than 5+ years ago, but officially became a legal organization in October of 2000, I believe, 15. So what I'd like to do is just have an informal conversation for a few minutes today, so those of you who are watching this will know what we are, what we do, what we're trying to do, and to help you understand that this is an organization that's been designed for all astrologers globally. We're not bipartisan in any way. We're not affiliated with any particular organization, but we embrace all of the organizations, and we've had tremendous support from several. So with that said, I'd like to kind of ask, I'm not sure who to ask here. I'd like to ask how this started. Does anybody want to start this conversation? I know it started in different parts of the world without knowing what was going to happen. So I don't know, Christine, Enid, Babs, Enid?
I'll take it. For my perspective is I was president of Kepler College for many years and the Astrological College. And we had a physical library, but one of my dreams, because we were also using JSTOR and other online resources, is that someday one of the resources I adore was WorldCat, which is a catalog of catalogs of different universities. And they had books saying where they were located. They had digital material. And I thought, oh, if we could have an international library type system like that for astrologers, it would be just fabulous. And it's an idea that percolated for years. And as I was reaching the end of my time at Kepler, wanting to retire, one of the things that I was thinking about as I was going forward was how can we make that real? And I heard that Ann Beversdorf was also interested in this idea, and we talked. And then I heard that you and Christine were also interested in this idea.
Yeah.
And for me, that's how it began.
Yeah, it was the way it happened for Christine and I, because we kind of knew each other, but we didn't really know each other that well. We were at an NCGR meeting on the East Coast, the national meeting, I guess. And I had, for many, many years prior to this meeting, I'd been getting all these books from clients of mine or students of mine whose parents had passed or who didn't know what to do with the books, and I kept getting all these books. In fact, I remember at the very beginning of Alexandra Imsirajev's school, I was sending them to Europe for a while when we could send things to Europe. But then the stuff started piling up, and then I started giving it away to the different local organizations, and it really bothered me because a lot of the books, which are obviously, we all know this with our own libraries, they're not in print anymore at all. The really old good books. It bothered me. So I spoke up at a meeting, and of course, good old Christine Skinner, who was at the same meeting, jumped up and said, "What did you say, Christine?"
Well, my memory is a little different. I remember
Okay.
us both escaping from this conference, right? And going off, and we had afternoon tea on a pavement in
Yes, we did after the meeting, yes.
Philadelphia. And as you rightly say, we didn't really know one another then. And we were talking about things, and I said something about the Urania Trust and our publication and trying to keep things in print, right? And we are a very similar age. And we both knew that we were dealing with people who, as you say, were leaving the planet, and we didn't know what was going to happen to all this stuff. And we clearly shared immediately, how could this stuff be preserved? Right? And we didn't really think, I mean, we were enjoying one another's company. At that point, we didn't really think about the physical, the logistics of how we were going to cope with hard copies of thousands of books, right? I mean, we didn't actually come up with the idea of a catalog at that point. We were just thinking primarily of how could we preserve this stuff? And I thought that the Urania Trust and Babs, I thought they're going to jump on this because we're all of us in exactly the same boat. We knew, Babs and I knew about stuff that we were trying to get back into print and the difficulties of getting it back in and distributing it. You know, we were very familiar with the problem.
And I think what happened, you know, after we had our tea, because I know you came to me at the meeting and then we did go afterwards.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting at that meeting because when I did bring it up, I remember several people said, well, I'm on board for something like this. I remember several people raised their hands, but it was just, it was a Neptune thing, you know?
It was, yeah.
It was like, this is what we're like a global kind of merging thought that was going on in different parts of the world. And then what happened before we actually became legal, which was back in, I should know this by now, 2015, I believe.
Yeah.
We actually decided to start just meeting literally once a month. And this is where Babs Kirby came in, who was very, very instrumental with you, Christine, to come up with, and we actually did meet monthly. Was it for 2 or 3 years?
Yes, we did. We did a couple of years of meeting monthly.
Without knowing, you know, what it would be, what would happen. And it really was a process before we even decided to go legal. And then we did decide. And so Babs, could you just sort of share something that, you know, part of what was going on at the beginning for you as well?
Well, yeah, Christine asked me to join with, as a fellow UT trustee. She wanted more than just her there to kind of relay back to the UT what was going on. So I think I was enlisted as a listening ear to start with, but being very fiery, I'm not much of a listener. I sort of jump in. So, and Christine knew that. So it was exciting. It was exciting, and things seemed to develop quite a pace. And for us Brits, obviously, I don't know, the legalities of it all when you were forming that was all a bit foreign to us. I forget what it's called. It's not called a charity. It's a not-for-profit organization or something.
Non-profit, correct.
Yeah, I don't think we have that over here. Maybe we do. But anyway, so I was pretty out of my depth for some of that. But no, it was just it was very exciting. It was developing at quite a rate, and we were getting a lot of people coming on board and offering help and expertise.
That was the big thing really with it, Georgia, right from the beginning, is that whatever it's needed, the cosmos has provided. You know, we needed legal help, which was going to cost us more than we had, and yet suddenly it was just delivered. It's been the most extraordinary business, really. I'm not convinced really of its chart, Georgia. I know we sweated blood trying to choose that chart, but I think it has a chart that we don't even know anything about, because the cosmos has just delivered whatever is needed, and the goodwill behind it is, I mean, even now with Babs and I, all we have to do now really is we go to the UT, and there is just tremendous understanding of what it needs.
Yes, and just for clarification for those that are viewing this conversation, the Urania Trust has been one of our prime supporters. For grants each year, and what happened is the Urania Trust helped us in the UK, and then of course Enid being with Kepler, we when we got to the point where we had to figure out, are we going to be a legal organization or not, which for those who are Americans as well as non-Americans, it is now a 501c3 nonprofit educational foundation. However, in order to form that, we didn't have the resources, quite frankly. We only had so much. So Kepler, when they had the offices, and I did teach the undergraduate program with others at Kepler for about 8 years, Kepler, Enid, stepped in and said, look, we're a 501c3, and what you can do is you can put your umbrella under our umbrella, basically. And that's what we did. And it worked.
We basically were the nursery.
Yeah, you were like exactly, the nursery. Yeah. And we shared office rent space, and we shared a lot of different things. And then things changed. This last year, at the end of 2020, we did become official in October 28th of 2015. It's interesting, we're doing this conversation now, folks who are watching this, because the moon in that chart is at 15 degrees of Taurus in the 10th house. And we actually are doing this right after the new moon in May of 2021, as Uranus is slowly creeping over the moon. So, but what happened at the end of last year is we had to change again. So there must be some strong mutability in the chart, because Kepler was closing their offices and going remote. And so then what we did, with the help of Enid and Kepler, we're still a 501c3, but we had to relocate it under a fully nonprofit umbrella. And now we're located in my residence in Florida.
We've flown the nest. We're now.
Yeah, we flew away. We're trying to now go to the next level. So, but as we were beginning, Ann Beebsdorf stepped in as our original librarian. And Ann is amazing. I mean, she did so much work at the beginning, trying to get organized what our thoughts were. Because there were lots of
funny, because back when Enid and I talked, I had started talking to people in Austin, Texas, about we need something like this. And, you know, maybe it can be a bunch of regional libraries and we just make a list of what's there. And if people wanted to see a book they couldn't get hold of, they could contact that library and make an appointment. In the meantime, I was sitting around stamping all of my astrology books, like 8 bookcases of them, with Alexandria project, you know.
Wow. Oh, wow.
As Enid and I were talking, and then I discovered there was this much larger network of people thinking along these same lines. And then my background was a librarian, and I apologize for the dog squeaky toy. And so I had cataloged my books. And so it wasn't too difficult for me to add my books to the larger list. At this point, we have something like 14,000 items in our catalog. Those aren't mine. And, doggy, I'm so sorry. I think we've got about 5,000 or 6,000 different titles.
Wow.
So it's a pretty comprehensive collection. At this point, it's mostly, here's the name of the book, here are the subjects, here's what city it's held in. And if you want to see the book, you need to contact us and we can arrange with the holder of that collection for people to visit the book. But our long-term goal, and there's some developments that may make this a faster long-term goal, is to digitize these books, all of them, and have them available. There are some digital books now. There are probably about 400 or 500 astrological books that are digitized. These are mostly older books. I mean, they have to be because they're copyright free. And our goal, and there are paths to go down to meet this goal, is to have in copyright books available for lending. And that one of the big problems in our field is a book gets published, it's got a copyright that lasts in effect 100 years, and it's out of print in 10 years and nobody can get it. And it's lost. It's just lost.
Yeah,
So
and the other piece, I just want to reiterate, not to interrupt you, but it is a unique database, as you've mentioned.
right.
Which you can't find in that, like what Ann did say, if you, even with your own library, you can use this with your own library at home, because we all have huge libraries, right? And we're looking for solar arcs or whatever for an article we're writing, and we don't know where we saw that. And you can use this service not only to look to see where these books are, but even for researching in your own library. I wanted to make sure we said that, and to say that we have 2 more librarians on staff right now too, because we've grown.
And that has been one of the issues for astrological cataloging forever, is if you go to a normal library catalog, it says astrology.
Right.
That's it. Where we are going through and cataloging for what we as astrologers care for, like you said, Georgia, solar arcs or horary or progressions, or and that is a chapter of the book, or it's one of the articles in the magazine that actually covers that topic, or it's a book entirely about that. But that way the research can be done. And the other piece to this library too is, in our future hope, is to develop the research side, so that papers that have been done can, and people are willing to let us have them in there to be part of the catalog, or research papers from astrologers that they want, they want to will them to us as a way for other astrologers to continue the work that's being done.
Which is a good point to bring up with Ann, because Ann, if somebody does want to tell us about their library, what is the procedure?
Well, we need to have an agreement that if we take on the task, which sometimes takes years, to get their library in our catalog, that they aren't going to get rid of the books or give them away, or when they die, they go into a garbage bin or a garage sale. So we need to have a promise and commitment that the books will be part of the Alexandria project forever. And there are ways that this can be handled without great expense for the person who has the books that need a new home. And then the other thing we need is a complete list of the books, because we're not going to be able to go there to their home and sit there for a year and get all those books into our collection. So we need author, title, publisher, date, ISBN if they have the time to enter that. But we need all of this data. Probably a spreadsheet is the best way to do it. And then we take that data and then we try to find examples of the book online so we can get additional information. For example, when we have access to that information, we include tables of contents. So if you know that there was some book you read that had a whole article about a whole bunch of stuff about eclipses, you can just write eclipse in the subject search or in the anywhere search. I really kind of like the anywhere search. There's a disagreement between the librarians about which searches they like best. But if you do an anywhere search, you'll get any book that has the word eclipse anywhere in the record. If you do a subject search, you'll get a book that has it in the subject category. So the anywhere gets you into the like almutens and other odd names that you wouldn't otherwise find. And as Georgia said, if there's something you read that was about graphic ephemerides, graphic ephemerides, and you have no idea where you read this book about this article, this chapter, this page about the graphic ephemeris, then you can enter graphic ephemeris and you can see anything in there that has that book in it. Now, if you don't find I think there is something in there about graphic ephemeris. If you don't find an answer, it's not that we don't have it, it's we don't have the table of contents. We don't have the book in hand. We don't know what's in it. And in some cases, I can't even find a description of a book. So there's stuff in there that we don't have all the information but it's really useful. And there's a lot of material in there. There's an awful lot of, another thing we're doing differently than most libraries is most libraries enter magazines as an issue number. We do issue numbers, but we also, when available, which is not always available, we also include tables of contents, which is a huge
That's great.
help. And that way, if somebody writes an article about the vertex, good heavens, there's nothing written about the vertex. Then if that article about the vertex is in a magazine that we have and we could enter the table of contents, you will find access to it. You will find where you can get that information.
That's fabulous.
So it's a tremendous source of information for people. Even if you're not getting the book, you can find the book, you can come visit us, but at least you know where that information is. Or if you have it in your own library, you can find it. You know, which issue of Mountain Astrologer was fractal astrology in? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about this. It's quite, it's very Virgoan in many ways, the way it was designed. And like I did say, we do have Anne and Anna G and Nancy Barr. They're online and they're working 24/7 right now. And actually, we just, because Urania Trust was very supportive, we just finally took on a project manager to kind of coordinate all our Neptunian ideas and put them together. And we've just designed a brand new website that we are still tweaking. And in fact, this is the one thing I wanted to add. I'm just going to do the ask at this point. We need help. We would love some volunteers who are willing to give us some of their time, even if it's about 2 or 3 hours a week. And we are also asking for astrologers as individuals and organizations to support this very, very important effort, because we do pay our librarians, we do pay our project manager, and we have been amazingly prudent about our budget, but we do need, because we are growing pretty quickly right now, some financial help, and we would love it. And if you would like to talk with me about that, if you wanted to set up something in your estate planning, it's never too early to plan an estate. You know, being a very practical American, why give it all away to the government? Give it away to something you believe in. Not against paying taxes, but if you really love astrology and you want to keep something like this going, we would love to talk to you about including us in your estate plan. We do have an account with Schwab where you can donate to Schwab. And we have a checking account, and we've had very good fortune with this organization. It is a Leo rising. I need to tell all of you that we are a Leo rising group. And we have a lot of heart on this board. And go ahead.
And when we're talking about volunteers, one good volunteer is if you know somebody with an extensive library, you could volunteer to make that list.
Yeah, for them.
Because a lot of people with extensive libraries are older people. Mm-hmm. And may not have all the resources available to make that list. So that's a volunteer thing. And I don't know, this project just excites me on so many levels. Another thing we need is people to use it and tell people about it.
Tell people about it, yes.
And because right now we've got this huge research tool that very few people have used, because we don't want to make a big splash. We didn't for the first 5 years because we felt like we didn't have enough books in the catalog. We do now. We've got a very usable catalog. We're still working on it and improving it. And I'm Anne, and the other main librarian is Anna. So Anna G is a university librarian, and she is bringing a wealth of experience that I don't have, having a library degree, but not having worked in libraries for the last 30, 40 years. I have minimal knowledge compared to Anna, and she's cleaning up
Yeah, she's
the
great.
database in beautiful ways and has nothing to do with your use of it. You can still use it completely, but we're going to have one of the best catalogs of any library, really, because she's double checking, triple checking everything. It's really it's a gift to astrologers, and that's really how we feel about it. We're building this gift to our field for future generations, in addition to those of us out there now and young astrologers who are just beginning to learn about medieval techniques or classical techniques. It's in there and you can find it, and you can build your own wish list for your personal collection. It's
It's an amazing, it's a miracle. This is a
it
miracle.
is. It's a
Yeah.
miracle.
And we're going to be closing right now. Does anybody else would like to have a last comment or thought? And then what I'll do at the end is I'm going to share my screen to show you the website.
Yeah.
So you know where to go. Yes, Anne.
I'd also like to emphasize that it's international.
It's international.
Not just British international, but
It's all over the world international.
yes,
Yeah.
that our ultimate goal is for astrologers who live anywhere to be able to access this, and at some point even perhaps get the impetus to create their own branch to have their contributions to the catalog entered, so that it can be truly a worldwide useful tool for all astrologers.
And this is for the future of astrology too, because
Yes.
we're moving into a virtual world where books, I think they're important, but a lot of the new young astrologers coming up will not have access to some of the very excellent older materials that will no longer be in existence. And so this is really for the future as well as for the present. And Christine, you have anything to say before we show the?
No, I'm just thinking, you know, this is our collective legacy, isn't it? I mean, it's enchanting that we've all come together for this. It was serendipitous that we met when we did, but clearly the idea was up there, you know, and we are simply dancing to a cosmic tune, but hopefully other people will join us and help us.
Yes, yes.
And you know, an interesting thing, the professions that are taken seriously, medicine, law, have large,
Absolutely.
special libraries of their field.
That's an excellent point.
And one thing that we don't have in our field is a long-term legacy, because, I mean, people are reinventing the wheel constantly.
Yeah.
And there's many outstanding techniques by astrologers, not just Lily, which goes way back, but I mean, it's just everyday astrologers who wrote small pamphlets and have an ideal technique for some issue that they're lost, and somebody later may reinvent it, or maybe no one will. And so we've got such a rich history, and to be a profession, we need to have a professional resource. We need the credentialing in a way.
I agree. Yeah, it's preserving the past to preserve the future.
Yep.
What this is. And Babs, would you like to say anything before we close? Again, thank you for your original help on all of this. You were just fabulous. Fabulous.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, I'm not as eloquent as Christine, but I wholeheartedly endorse what Christine has just said. It was it was its moment, wasn't it?
It was. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And is.
And
So
is, yes.
And is. So I'm going to share the screen before we close. So those of you who are watching this will be able to see the website. I'm going to, hopefully I can do this pretty seamlessly. I'm hoping this will work. Nope. Is that working?
Yes, it is.
Is
Yeah.
it? Okay, good. And let me just open it up. Okay. And this is the Alexandria iBase project. Let me just put it here. Yeah, that's it. That's it, alexandriaibase.org. So if you'd like to help us, let us know. If you'd like to talk with us, let us know. And thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And thank you, everybody. You just are the most amazing crew. And I am very blessed. And so with that, I will stop the share and I will say goodbye. Thank you.